Packers will have a first and goal. Receiver to the right, Jimmy Graham. Rodgers, quick toss in the flat, left side, got his man for the end zone, and a touchdown.
First and Goal podcast on Spreaker.com. And we're now on all your favorite platforms: iHeartRadio, Spotify, Castbox, Google Podcasts, Tumblr, YouTube, and SoundCloud. You can always follow us on Twitter at First and Goal Pod and our Facebook page, facebook.com/First and Goal Pod 33.
Get money, yeah. Get money, yeah. Get money, yeah. Get money, yeah. Every day I'm 3, 2, 1.
And welcome, everybody, to another live edition of First and Goal. It's the matchup show, and we are joined today by the Kenny King Jr. of the Cody Raider podcast. And, of course, down in Georgia, your host with the most, it's Dave. What's up, guys?
What's going on, First and Goalers?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Man, I'm excited. We got a good underrated game this weekend, man. I feel like not enough people are giving this Oakland-Green Bay game enough respect. You got Oakland, who just thumped the Colts and the Bears. Green Bay just came off 2 big wins against Detroit and Dallas. I mean, there's not enough respect on this game, in my opinion.
No, absolutely not. I mean, you know, the teams are looking very good at this point. You know, Raiders played a hard-fought game against the Bears. It was a big statement game, obviously. Khalil Mack was the focus of the whole week, and for us to completely shut him down was huge. It's also our first win in London, so, you know, props to the Raiders on that.
Yeah, man, that was, like, especially the miles y'all have traveled so far.
Huh.
I can't believe that you came out and just pounded. I know Akeem Hicks went out, but still, that's a talented defensive front, and y'all pounded the rock down their throat, and I loved every bit of it because the Bears are a rival, and to see that, I'm like, okay, they got a weakness. Thank you for the blueprint, Oakland.
Well, yeah, and, you know, the thing was, last year we flew out the day before the game, and you could tell that everybody was fatigued and jet-lagged and just lethargic out there.
Huge difference.
Yeah, this week they flew out right after the Colts game, so they wasted no time. They got on the flight after the game, flew out to London, spent the whole week out there. The Bears flew out a couple days before the game, and you could see the difference. But you know, like you said, they were exposed in the fact that you can run the ball at them, and eventually they're just going to break.
So actually, about the traveling question, I know it's ahead of schedule, but I got to go ahead and ask. I know you guys are projected to have the most traveling yards or distance in away games this year. So, I mean, do you think since you guys are moving to Vegas, do you think the NFL's like trying to be like, let's make it hard on them before they have to move?
I think that the NFL has basically done everything they can to make things hard on the Raiders for the past few years. If you look, the Raiders have had a home game taken away each year. Last year we were in London. The year prior we were in Mexico. The year before that we were in London. So, you know, we lose that home game. You have the most away games. This road stretch that we're on is utterly insane. We don't have a home game until November 3rd, and we haven't had one since September. So, you know, when we left Oakland, we had dirt on the infield because the A's were still playing. When we get home, we're going to have a full grass field. So, you know, it's definitely stressful from a fan perspective. But looking at the way that the team is handling it, you can tell that they're absolute professionals. They seem to be prepared this year as they weren't last year, and the preparation of what they've been doing has greatly went into that. Gruden has been setting the practices in the morning so that way the players their internal clocks are already adjusted to being ready for those early games, as opposed to before practices were in the afternoon. So they've already made those adjustments, and it's already starting to pay off.
Well, it's not his first rodeo. I mean, he's been there, done this before. So I mean, I fully expect him to have the team ready week in and week out, even with injuries and everything else. He's one of the utmost professionals. And so Green Bay is coming this weekend. I mean, I'm sorry, Oakland's coming to Green Bay this weekend. Does it bring up any old memory nostalgia games? Like, I mean, even the history. I mean, Green Bay and Oakland, I believe, met up in Super Bowl II, and then Favre's big father passing. I mean, any other games that you can
So
think of?
yeah, so this is a fun fact about me. My favorite quarterback of all time is Brett Favre. Um,
Earned
over
brownie
Ken
points in our
Stabler,
book, sir.
over Stabler, over Plunkett. I mean, I love those guys, but all-time favorite quarterback is Brett Favre. And mainly because the first time I saw him play was in the Super Bowl in '96 versus the Patriots, and he just decimated them. And the way the guy plays, he'll throw an interception, then he'll go and try to tackle the guy that they caught the ball. But the guy's just a hard-nosed player. Loved everything about him. Hated the fact that in that game in 2003 that he just obliterated us. But at the same time, I had so much respect for the guy because of the fact that his father had just passed, and he came out there on Monday night against a hostile Oakland crowd and did what he did. It was pure magic to watch. I was at that game, and you couldn't help but feel for the guy, and it was just pure magic to watch. So,
Well, what I love is
yeah.
the fact that the Raider Nation embraced Brett that night. I mean, I remember
Oh yeah.
watching the game live and all the signs. It says, "We're with you, Brett." Prayers to your family. Like, it was just across the whole stadium. And even when Brett Favre threw the touchdowns, Raiders fans were clapping. And I have had so much respect for Raiders Nation since then, because I was a young cat. I started watching football in 92, 93, and it's when Favre started. And being a young teenager watching that, it had so much respect for Raider Nation for me, because it's huge. I mean, you don't ever see an away team, or not an away team, but an opposite fan base support another player like that in that situation. And it was just huge to see that.
That game,
No, absolutely.
that game was the game that my old lady finally understood why I was obsessed with the Packers and Brett Favre. And then she actually let me take out the DVD from the back of the Brett Favre book that I had at the time, that was like an autobiography sort of thing, like in his mom and stuff, and it had like his whole life. And then she like fell in love, and then Sundays were okay that I was not going to do anything but watch football. Before that, it was a complete argument. Before that game.
So that
Fair enough.
I'm not even gonna lie, guys. When I watched Favre hit that, I think, first or second touchdown pass, I legit started to like tear up, because I'm like, oh my God, it's like his dad is like watching over this game and protecting every pass, and it just kept going and going, and I teared up that night, man. Not even gonna lie.
Hey, it's okay. I've teared up plenty of times during Raider games. Sometimes good, sometimes bad.
I know you teared up against Woodson's retirement game, man. I know I did.
I teared up in Woodson's retirement game. I teared up when Carr broke his ankle. I teared up, especially when we tuck rule. I didn't tear up. I bawled my eyes out.
Well, that was a complete robbery. It should have been Oakland
absolutely.
that year in the Super Bowl. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
But you know what? Having the respect for one another in past games and history, and Gruden, do you think it adds extra respect from him to go into Green Bay because it's where he came from?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the great coaching trees, the Holmgren tree, the Parcells tree, the Walsh tree, and where these players come from, where these coaches come from, they have the respect throughout the league. There's very few teams that don't respect, a guy like Mike Holmgren, or a guy like John Gruden, or a guy like Andy Reid, or, Bill Walsh, or, somebody like that, or Bill Belichick maybe. But, I definitely think that Gruden has a lot of respect from both sides. In Raider Nation, like I said, we have a lot of respect because of the fact that we've shared so much with you guys. We've played in Super Bowls together. We've taken our former general manager Reggie McKenzie.
Yep.
We've shared Charles Woodson. And so we have that history. You guys have Aaron Rodgers, who's from the Bay Area. Granted, he was a Niner fan, but we have a lot of history together. So I definitely think that Gruden being part of the Packers organization, definitely there has to be a place in your guys' hearts for him, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he came from the Holmgren tree, man. I mean, that was Andy Reid, Mooch, and Gruden. And all three coaches, look what they did. They all went and blossomed and became known coaches. And Gruden's still doing it. Reid's still doing it. Mooch is an analyst, but he's one of the better analysts out there. I love watching NFL Game Day because of that crew they have on there, and Mooch, because you can see why he fired up players. I would love to be in one of his pregame locker room speeches to go in ready for a game. I think it's probably one of the most motivating speeches anyways, but also, too, I think Gruden is as well. I mean, when I watched his postgame conference or his press conference in the locker room,
if I had to play for Gruden, I'd throw a chair at him.
But
we wouldn't mash him and me. Nope.
I think he's a little bit taller than you.
He's in the nightmares, man.
Doesn't matter. We wouldn't mash.
Well, I mean, even Gruden's little post-game dance-off that he had in the locker room making fun of the Bears, I laughed my butt off. When he's like, we don't got no crystal ball or dance club in here, but let's go ahead and dance. And I'm like, oh, my God, this is amazing. I love Gruden. I actually met him, Kenny, when I was Monday Night Football game. It was when the Falcons played the Packers on Monday Night Football. It was my birthday, and my next flight in the morning, I was hungover. I was still drunk. I only had like 3 hours sleep. I missed my flight originally out of Green Bay to Atlanta, but something was wrong with the plane, so I didn't know this. And then next thing I know, the luggage guy drove me to Appleton, Wisconsin, and then got on the airport there, went in the airport. They upgraded me to VIP because I was still active duty. And lo and behold, I go and sit in first class and set my bags up top. I was so hungover. And I look over, I double take, and I go look back again. And he goes, no joke, quote. And he goes, well, are you going to keep staring, or are you going to ask me out like when I'm your first prom date? And I'm like, oh, my God, it's John Gruden. It's John Gruden. Oh, my God. I got to talk to him for 3.5 hours about football from Green Bay to Atlanta.
That is seriously like a dream come true right there.
And I'm pretty sure he could smell the reeking alcohol off me. I was pounding water and asking for as many snacks as I could through that flight because I felt so bad. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Mr. Gruden, it's my birthday. Stop calling me Mr. Gruden, call me John. And I'm like, okay. Yeah,
he's hilarious.
And that's the thing. Being he's a celebrity, you know how some celebrities don't like being pried? I wasn't like trying to... How do I put it? I wasn't trying to be like, oh, how's this happen in football, blah, 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 because, I mean, I'm sure he gets that all the time. And This is his flight home. I didn't want to be like that. I asked a couple things here and there on how it was to coach in Green Bay and then Oakland, and now he's on the Monday night broadcast. All the people he gets to meet, and he says he wouldn't change a thing. Then is when I rode with him. And I figured, I even told him, I'm like, I can picture you being back with the Raiders. And he said, well, maybe someday. And I'm like, it came true.
Yeah, Gruden was one of those guys where every time we fired a coach, which was very often, he was the name that most of the fans wanted. Most of the fans were clamoring for. Most of the fans were really hoping that we'd get him. And when Jack Del Rio got fired after the San Diego game, we knew that Gruden was coming back. And the fact that he's back and what he's doing right now is huge. And so, I'm really excited about it. I've always been a huge Gruden fan.
Well, I mean, yeah, I always have been too. I don't know if Jay's a big fan of him because of the whole being traded to Tampa and him and Bill Callahan. He thinks there's a conspiracy theory that Callahan threw the game for Johnny to get his ring.
I know Callahan threw the game. I don't know if it was for John to get the ring.
What'd you say?
I didn't say it was a conspiracy theory. I said I watched it on an NFL Network thing, and actual players that were on the Raiders were there saying that they had went to him, were like, dude, we can't run this playbook. We can't do this. And that they could see on the sidelines that every time they called a play, Gruden knew exactly what the play was, and that's why that defense was so... They had like...
It was no conspiracy.
Okay. Whatever. Then NFL Network's a bunch of liars, Dave. Whatever, man. You always do.
Hey, this. Kenny, I think you muted yourself, brother.
Yeah, sorry, my family was